Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Can You Hack It? I am Ben, aka Iceman, and this week we're going to take a look at a Windows system with a medium level of difficulty called Jeeves from Hackthebox.eu.
So as usual, we'll start out by just popping open a terminal, and I've already actually created a folder that we're going to work out of here. Let's fire up tmux so that we have a few more windows to work with, and let's actually go back and get connected. To the network. And let's make sure we ping Jeeves. Okay, and let's make a directory for our scans. And as usual, we'll fire up an Nmap real quick and just take a look and see what we find. Let's do a quick one of the common ports. We'll write this out to file. Scans and ports. And 10.63. Oh, typo. And so we see that web server ports open, a couple NetBIOS ports are open, RPC port, and a port 50,000, which is listing here as IBM DB2. Let's actually run this again, but this time let's call it services, and let's add the option to run scripts and services and see if we find any additional details about what's running on these ports. And while we're waiting on that, let's go ahead and fire up Dirbuster and get it running on port 80 to see if we find anything interesting there. We'll use our built-in word lists as usual. And we'll let that run, and let's take a look and see. It looks like we're still running some of the scripts over here, and they just finished. And so if we take a look, so it looks like IIS 10. We've got a potentially risky method with trace. We've got the Microsoft RPC port and 445, which is NetBIOS stuff. And it looks like 5000 now is actually showing up as a web service also called Jetty 9.4.z snapshot. So let's take a quick look on Google and see. Oops, sorry. On KeePass. See what comes up here. And you can see that I've actually searched this before. So we've got a link from Hack the Box. I typically don't like to look at the forums because there's usually, they do a really good job of policing the spoilers on there. But a lot of the time you still find things that kind of push you in the right direction. It's good if you're completely blocked and you just don't know what else to do, but generally I try and avoid it, especially at the beginning. So it looks like there's a directory traversal on Jetty potentially. Password Java, information disclosure. For right now, we'll go ahead and come back to our Dirbuster. We don't have anything super interesting here yet. We actually haven't browsed it, but let's take a look and see. Okay, ask Jeeves, search here. Conversion failed when converting the N-bar car. So actually, we may have a possibility here at a SQL injection. So this form is submitting to error.html, which just has a Jeeves.png, so I'm actually not quite sure why we triggered. Yeah, so failed when converting the N-bar car. This doesn't actually even look like our input, so this looks almost like somebody was trying to do SQL injection. Web roots, sock puppets, app code, generic data access. Now, sometimes when stuff like this comes up, especially since I don't think I noticed this the first time through, I like to just do a quick reset on the server in case somebody's been messing with stuff and we're going down a rabbit hole based on what they've been doing. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pause this video real quick. We'll restart the server, that way you don't have to wait for 2 minutes, and then I'll be back. Okay, we're back and the resets happened, and let's see if we're still getting the same result. We are. So that's interesting. If we look at the source, I see what's happening here, I think this is just an image. Yeah, so that's weird. That wasn't there before, maybe or I just didn't notice it. It's possible too. So we're probably going down a rabbit hole there, since we're not actually throwing an error, we're just showing an error page that somebody had. So let's go ahead and we'll ignore that for now. It looks like that main web page probably isn't anything other than maybe an issue with IIS. Our Dirbuster is finished. Oh, it probably aired out when we did the reset. That's fine. Let's actually start scanning the other web server that's on here. We'll leave all the settings the same. Let that get started, and let's take a manual look real quick and see what is there. 1, 2, 3. And so it looks like we get a problem accessing / reason not found. And let's see if our Dirbuster is coming up with anything. Not yet. About 12% of the way through. So while that's running, let's see what other ports we had. So we had the RPC ports and NetBIOS stuff. We can try some good old fashioned Metasploit exploits that work on the MSRPC. My assumption is they're not going to make it that easy on us, but let's see. Warning, unable to discern system fail response. It looks like we may have actually found something. Cancel out of this. Stop that scan. About or ask Jeeves. So let's actually put off that Metasploit stuff for a second. Jenkins, create new jobs, credentials, manage. New versions available, configure system. So looks like this may not have any security set up on it. It's taking forever to load. Configure global security, credentials, tool configuration, reload. So it looks like we have a CLI and a script console. Those may be a little more interesting. CLI. Looks like this is just a help document that tells how to use CLI that they must have included here. So we have a script console, type an arbitrary Groovy script, and execute it on the server. So this looks like this may be our most promising lead so far. And let's see here. I believe we can try and do something like, let me see, Groovy script stuff is print ln ls execute. I believe they have .execute and then text. System cannot find the specified. This is Windows box. cmd.exe. Run the command dir. Okay, and so that looks like that works. We're in the directory of users administrator.jenkins. Doubt it's going to be this easy, but let's see if we do a dir of. I think we might have to escape these. Users, administrator, desktop. We didn't get any result there. Possible the desktop's empty, although I think we would have still seen something. Same thing. I'm assuming that that's a permissions issue. See if we're running as administrator. That'd be a little too easy, I think. Okay, so box name is Jeeves, and the username I can't pronounce. Kasugi or something. So we could do a dir of C:, users. Desktop. Remember, Windows isn't case sensitive, so I could have ignored the case there, but okay, and so there's our user.text. For people that aren't familiar, Windows, you have a users directory, then the username, and then you have a bunch of common folders, documents, desktop, downloads, pictures. And so that's why I just happened to know that we could look in, like in this case, desktop. Now, we don't have a way to, or we don't have cat to cat this. We could actually just do a type. Sorry, place that part with type, and I think this should Okay, and so we've got the user token. Now, you could sit here and just use this as your console, but depending on what you've got to do, this could become a big pain in the ass. There are some tools out there. I think I've actually written one that is in GitHub somewhere that give you more of a Python command line interface that you can use to execute commands, and it kind of automates all this stuff for you. I'm not actually going to use that in this case because I want to show you another way to do this, so we'll pretend that we don't have this yet. And we'll go about doing this another way. So, we have the Metasploit open. We'll kill that for now. So let's create a payload first so that we can make a reverse shell with Metasploit. So we'll use it's still in there. msfvenom. And we'll do a Windows meterpreter reverse TCP payload. lhost, which is our local host, is going to be equal to our IP address, if I can type. And our L port, whatever we want. And let's go ahead and encode this. Make it a little less likely to be detected by antivirus, which may or may not be running on that system. And we'll pipe this to meterpreter x86, reverse tcp.exe. I like to give them a slightly descriptive name, at least on my local side, so that I know what they are. Typically, I wouldn't be rebuilding this. I actually have a collection of them already built. But just for read payload from standard. No, sorry, I screwed something up there. Oh, I don't know why. I did that. So let's try that. Still attempting to read from standard in. Probably typoed something somewhere. Oh, sorry, I see it now. Forgot to put -p. Okay, so there we go. And now if we take a look in here, we've got our payload. And so now we need a way to deliver it to that box. Our script console seems like the obvious choice. So again, we can write a quick Groovy script. You can Google most of these also, so don't feel like you need to memorize them. Def file is equal to new file output stream. So this is what we're going to call the local file, on local as in on the remote side, not our local side. I'm just going to call it 1.exe. I prefer to, if this was something real, you might want to give it a name that blends in a little more. This is also going to write it to that root location that we started out in. So again, it's probably not the most inconspicuous spot. You could give a full path here. In this case, I'm just not going to. So now our output is going to be a new buffered outputs. Hopefully we still have our connection. 10.10.10.63. Okay, so I'm not sure why that aired out, but at this point I don't know that we care. Stream file, so our file from above. And then we're going to do out new URL. This is going to be our local host. x86 rev tcp. Close. And so this should create a local file named 1.exe that contains the contents of our reverse TCP shell. And so we'll use our Python server to serve this up. Simple HTTP server. Default port of 80. Technically, we could use a port up here instead and call in whatever we wanted. But I think this should work fine. And it's probably more likely to get through a firewall if there is one. Startup failed, unable to resolve. Okay, so I probably typoed something here. Def out equals new. Oh, sorry. Again, trying to type too fast. Okay, and so we got no result there, which is good because that means we didn't get an error. So now if we text, and let's see if 1.exe shows up in there. It does. And let's give it a second, and we're going to run this again. The reason we're going to do that is if antivirus happens to be running, it may disappear. And we look good so far. Just for fun, let's do a task list. Equivalent of PS in Linux. And so this should give us a little list of running processes. Perhaps. There we go. Okay. And what we're looking for is right here, MSMP engine. So Microsoft's default Defender is running on this system, but it appears that we have avoided being detected by it, thus far at least. I believe this is probably a 64-bit system, in which case sometimes encoding the payload and using a x86 payload has seemed to help avoid getting detected. I'd be willing to bet that if we made our payload 64-bit, that it would get picked up. Part of that has to do with we can't use that same encoder on a 64-bit payload, but so yeah, it is x86 based. Now we can run tools like this to get a lot more information about the system. I recommend that you do. In this case, I'm bypassing it because as of this point, I haven't seen a need to. Once we get some shell access, maybe we'll find out that we can't access what we want, in which case we'll look for a privilege escalation. And in those times, as with every box you go to, you're going to enumerate until you finally find something that works. So, since we know our 1.exe is here and works, let's try executing it, although we forgot a pretty important step. Let's pop Metasploit back up. We have to have, since this is a reverse shell, we need to have a local listener, which is what we'll fire up here. So we're going to use exploit multi-handler. I'm going to set the payload to meterpreter. Come on. There it goes. So just in case you didn't know, there is tab completion in this, which is what I was waiting on, but it's being kind of slow. Reverse TCP. So it makes it a little easier with some of this stuff, especially if you forget what something's called. You can usually do tab completion and choose from the options. Set our L host to our local address. Set our L port to the one that we created our payload. Set exit on session to false. And set exploit J. Okay, so now we've got a reverse handler running. So let's pop back in here, run this, and again, no error, that's promising. Although I don't see a session created yet, so maybe that didn't work. Sessions -L. No active sessions. Let's try this again. Let's actually try just doing this. System cannot find the file specified. Unfortunately, I think I know what happened here. I think we were picked up. Yes. Or somebody deleted us, but it's a lot more likely that, unfortunately, I think we got detected, and so we can try, let me see here, we can try to encode it a different way or use a different payload. Okay, so actually I paused the video for a second there while I tried to generate a couple more payloads to see if I could find one that would work, which I'm having a hard time finding one that isn't being picked up. It's a little ironic given that I actually have one that I made the other day when I first did this challenge that works fine, but I can't seem to find command line parameters that I used to generate it. I'll go ahead and use it real quick just to show you how you would proceed. But then, since this did fail, I'll show you a different way that we can go about achieving the same goals. So if we go into, let me see, cd backup 1.exe, I believe. No, I think actually it's a x86. And we'll copy that to, we'll just call it 1.exe here. So, make our Python web server simple. As you can see here, I was trying some other ones. By putting this all into one thing, I can actually see what's happening. And so, like in this case, did not complete successfully because the file contains a virus or potentially unwanted software. Which is, oops, what did I just do there? Which is not fun. So, let's try going about it this way. And if it picks it up still, it's possible that this box is set up to run updates, although I doubt it. And that its Windows Defender is actually picking stuff up. So this time there was no error. And so I think if we go to my meterpreter again, and do a sessions list, still actually don't have a session. Let's clear this out of there. It's interesting, so it appears to be running okay, but it's not connecting. Time 0. IP is the same as it always is. Well, that's fine, so this way isn't going to work. So let's go ahead and try this yet another way. Get Jenkins Terminal. Now hopefully by the time you see this video I've cleaned this code up. This code is horrible. Not quite sure why that's not working. I probably typoed something again. Oh, sorry. It's one of those days. Okay, so we go into Jenkins Terminal and we run up Python 3 JTerm, I think. Okay. Get an errors, of course. Oh, sorry. This is because I'm a slacker. I still have some code in here that was using a proxy, which I'm not currently using. So let's go ahead and we'll rip this out. LS. So we've got some junk at the bottom. Let me clean that up too, just to make this more readable for people. Okay, sorry. Fixed that simple bug. I'd actually fixed it previously, but I hadn't checked the code back in from the computer that was on, so I just had to make some quick changes to it. So basically all this code is doing is executing the script console like we were doing manually. It just makes it a little quicker. So basically now the problem is going to be that we don't have persistence in our shell, and so we won't be able to do simple things like cdc. I'm probably also going to have to quote things out. So the change directory command worked fine, but now if we do a dir, we're still in our original directory. So it makes it a little bit more hard to poke around. It's not the end of the world though. Let's take a look around the main users directories again and see if we see anything interesting. So if we do a dir /users, probably need to key. I'm not sure if it's gonna. Let's do it this way. Let's check subdirectories also so that it makes it a little quicker. Okay, and so now we've got contents of all of our subdirectories that are part of his folders, hers, whatever it is. We've got all the app data stuff here too, which we probably want to ignore because, again, if you're familiar with Windows, there is tons of stuff in app data, which is kind of a hidden folder that applications use to store stuff. We can potentially search through this by taking this output, using grep to look for anything interesting. For now, I'm just going to ignore stuff in app data and see if we have anything interesting in some of these other folders. Below app data. So contacts is empty. Desktop has our user text file, which we've already got. And documents has a ceh.kdbx file that could potentially be interesting. Bx file. Favorites doesn't have anything interesting. Links, nothing interesting. Okay. So not a whole lot of interesting stuff other than that ceh.kdbx file. Which for now, let's just make a note of where we saw it. It was in SQL users. Sorry, I'm horrible with this name. Try this out just to be sure. Okay. Since we don't have any tools there and we don't have a very good shell, we probably don't want to mess with this file there too much. We pop open a browser. Let's see. KDBX. Okay, so it's a Keypass file. Keypass is a password manager. If you're not familiar with it, feel free to read up. So we need to find a way to get this file off. Now we notice that we have an IIS web server, which means that it's probably serving out of the default directory of inetpub www.root. Yeah. So we can see, I wouldn't hold my breath here, but see if we can copy that file to there. Access denied. Let's look in here real quick. This is our Jenkins applications root folder. Got jobs, logs, nodes, plugins, secrets, updates. Got user content. Keep forgetting we can't do that in this limited shell. Dir user content. There's a readme.txt file. Type user content slash readme.txt. Wrong slash, that's probably not going to work. Type user content txt. Record while processing. Sorry, again. Find the specified file. There we go. Files in this directory will be served under your Jenkins user content. This looks like a promising place. Since it's being served out of here, we likely have write permissions. So let's try and copy this to user content and file copied. Dir user content. Okay. And Jenkins, did it say, I believe user content. And there it is. So let's save this. And let's be responsible citizens and do a delete ch.kdbx. So it's still in there. One of these days I'll learn. Maybe. that's gone. The reason we do that, of course, is so that we're not leaving stuff around for other people that may make it easier than it's intended to be. So now if we look for our file, which we don't see here because it's saved to my downloads. Okay, and so what we need to do here is see if we can crack the password to this, because Keypass databases have a master password, which we don't currently have. So I'm going to use, there it is, Keypass to John, and we're going to use that to create a hash file that we can use with Hashcat. So hash, and let's take a look at this. So this is good. One thing to notice, I don't know why it does it, but this part here, CH, the username, that shouldn't be in here. So delete that out. Now we're good. Ready to go. And so if we go to Hashcat and see Keypass, let's keep coming. Okay, so Hashcat M13400. Attack mode 0, we're going to do straight attack W. Let's keep it a low workload. If this was a dedicated box, I might go higher. In this case, since it's a VM, and I'm not too concerned about how long this takes, since I can pause the video if it takes too long. And then our hash file, and now our word list. We'll use the standard raw q.text. And let's pull the trigger and see what happens. No devices found. Oh, wow. You see it again, because I'm in a VM. I typically do this outside of a VM, but inside of my VM, I don't have any OpenCL runtimes. So let's see real quick. Let's see if we can get it to run on CPU. I think to do that, I'm going to go ahead and pause this. I think I'm going to need to install some Intel OpenCL libraries. Actually, I'm going to unpause it. I figured some people may be interested in seeing how to do this. So if you look for Intel OpenCL, standalone OpenCL release. So we'll use the OpenCL runtime for Intel Core and Intel Xeon processors. And latest release for Red Hat and Ubuntu. Save that. Window. installer. I've never actually tried this inside of a VM, so we'll see if it works. Finished. So let's go back and see if Hashcat is liking us more now. It looks like it is. It sees the Core i9 there. Is an available platform. And so now it's running through. So we should be able to see our status. And it looks like it actually finished there. It kind of got screwed up because I happened to hit status right when it finished, but this is the line we're looking for because this is our hash, and right at the end here, this is our password. So it's Moonshine1. So we do kpcli. You may need to install that with an apt-get install kpcli if you don't already have KeePass CLI on there. And then we want to do an open ch.kdbx. And it wants the master pass. Moonshine1. Okay, looks like that worked. Now this is similar to how you would navigate in like a bash terminal. So you just do an ls to see which groups we have there. We have ch, so we'll do cd ch. And we've got a number of things in here. Got a bunch more groups, so let's just look through those real quick. Ls, email, nothing. Ls, general, oops, sorry, ls, nothing. Ls, internet, nothing. Ls, network, nothing. Ls, Windows, nothing. Okay, so those were all useless. I can do a show 0. I'm not sure what it's, unless there's nothing in there. Show 2. Show an entry, yeah, so that should be working. Let's show 1. Okay. Buggy or something. So you notice the password here, you can't see, but that's just because it's preventing you from looking over somebody's shoulder. So we should be able to actually see it if we just paste it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for Bank of America. This is titled backup stuff, no username, big long password. Okay, now this looks interesting right off the bat. The reason why, again, if you're familiar with Windows, is this looks like an NT and LM hash. And they're separated by that colon. Let's take a look at the rest of these real quick. Show 2, DC recovery password. That may be interesting. Assuming DC means domain controller. Although we haven't seen any sign that this system is connected to a domain. 3. EC Council's username is Hackerman. Found you all. So administrator username here is Hackerman. How many more do we have? Show 4. It's a secret. Admin. Looks like a local host. Something running secret.jsp. We should take a look, which we'll do after this, and see if there happens to be something running on localhost. port 8180 or 8000. This one doesn't have a password on it. Show keys to the kingdom, huh? Bob. And Walmart. Probably not interesting, but sometimes people reuse passwords, although hopefully not one password. Okay, so that's all the credentials we have in there. Most of the usernames are admin or administrator. There's one Bob. There's a hacker man. So let's exit out of here. I forget what. Oh, yes. So we wanted to see netstat-an. See if anything's listening on those local ports. It does not appear so. Appears all the ones. Got a bunch below 50,000, but those are probably reverse shells that people have opened. So we can actually, let's see. It doesn't like that apparently. Oh, because I'm not an administrator. Maybe mix that -no. Okay, so we can at least see the process ID, which we can map back with task list to which processes are listening on stuff. In this case, I don't know that I really care too much at this point. I'm actually more concerned with this NTLM hash that we got. So again, I'm not a big fan of always using Metasploit. I think it kind of makes things a little too easy sometimes. But in this case, it's helpful for doing pass the hash and see if we can actually get our privilege escalation through using pass the hash. So we're going to want to do a quick Google for Metasploit NTLM hash. I believe what we want to use is the SMB psexec module, but just to be sure. Yeah, so we've got an example here. TLM hash. So we're using a post tool to do a hash dump. In this case, it doesn't do us a lot of good because since we're not privileged, we wouldn't actually be able to run that tool on this box since it's a Windows 10 box. So there are instructions. Okay, so let's try running this. Use exploit Windows and SMB psexec. Let's set our payload to Windows interpreter reverse TCP. Set our L host to our host IP address. Set our L port to, doesn't matter, to something. Set our R host 10.10.10.63. Let's see what other options we have. Okay, set our SMB user administrator. Set our SMB pass to our NTLM hash. I think that's all we care about. Everything that's required is set. Oh, except for, did I not set our host? Set our host hm.10.63. Show options. Okay. Now everything we care about is set. So let's go ahead and exploit. So far, so good. And it looks like we got a session. So we drop into a shell and a who am I? And we're system. So we basically got the keys to the kingdom now. Now if we go back on these boxes, all of our root tokens should be on the desktop of the administrative user. hm.txt, so we type hm.txt. The flag is elsewhere, look deeper. Okay, so if we assume that the person that built this box followed the instructions and that the flag is on the desktop, we've got a Windows 10 link. I feel like it's not that. Got some gobbledygook in it. So we show hidden files, dir attribute hidden. Desktop ini is all that's there. We probably don't care about that either. Since that's a normal file that contains, yeah, so that's not interesting. So another thing we can look for is, it's called an alternate data stream, and you may be familiar with this if you've ever messed around with steganography or any sort of antivirus, or sorry, not antivirus, any sort of rootkit or malware on Windows. It's a technique that you can use for implanting metadata on files as long as it's on an NTFS file system, and it's a good way to hide additional information. So we do, I think it's a /r. Well, let's just try it. Yeah, okay. And so what you see here is that hm.txt has an alternate data stream of root.txt. Now, typically, I would just type Notepad and give the name of that alternate data stream. Since we only have a command line, I don't think this actually works because I don't think type understands. Yeah, it doesn't understand alternate data streams. Print is another technique that a lot of people actually don't know about. This should see alternate data streams, and we should be able to print it to a file. Unable to initialize device PRN. So that actually doesn't look like it's going to work either. So we've got a few options here. There's some tools that we could try and download to this system now that we have a meterpreter shell. We can easily upload and download stuff. We could try downloading this. I don't think it works, but let's just try it anyway. Download. Oh, sorry. Let's exit out of this shell. Download. Let me make sure I'm in the right directory. Not. It's System32. So okay, download hm.txt root Dropbox. Add the box. Box is Jeeves. Yeah, so we only ended up getting the main file because of the fact that alternate data streams only exist on NTFS. I think we would have done a copy between two NTFS systems. It may have worked. I don't think this works, but we can try it. It appears to have downloaded something, so cat text. Text is a directory, huh? Cat hm.txt :root.text. Ah, so there we go. So we were able to pull it through like that. Another thing we probably could do is cat. Since this has most of the Linux tools built in, .txt. Yeah, could have gotten it that way too. It looks like this is, yeah, same hash. So there you go. There you go. That's it. Perhaps one of these days I will do a video on creating meterpreter payloads that evade antivirus, since that seemed to be a big hiccup on this one, and I didn't want to dig too deep down that rabbit hole and make this video too long. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and see you next time.